Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with Conspicuous. We are joined by the lovely, lovely, lovely Andy Wingate, and we're all. I just said Wingate, so sorry, Wingate. I can't talk today. And then we've got Philippa Comley for 2 weeks running. We've got her as our lovely co-host today. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you for having me on.
No worries. So, I know,
Thank you very
Andy,
much.
a fair few people in our network will know you because I know we've got lots of mutual connections. Um, for those that don't know sort of your background, I think it's always a nice introduction. So, let us know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Okay. So I'm Andy Wingate. I'm currently head of Business Central at Telefonica Tech. I joined the partner channel back in March 22. Joined a company called Incremental Group that got acquired by Telefonica Tech, as you know happens these days, quite commonly in the sector. And before that, so I'm mostly focused on Dynamics 365 Business Central. But before that, I was on the end user side. So I was a head of IT, head of business systems kind of role, and we used Dynamics in the company where I worked before. But we delivered projects, but I was also responsible for all the other kind of systems from the end user side. But I made the jump across to the partner channel thanks to the help from Philippa here. So the rest is history, really.
Amazing. And I know, yeah, as you mentioned, Philippa help you made that jump, which is lovely. And in your end user role, um, were you always on the dynamic system? I know you would have at some point. Were you part of like the changeover from Nav to BC? Were you on a different system before? What were you part of in the end user environment?
It was quite. I mean, sort of a fairly common story for SMBs that are in the space who might use NAV or BC. So we were on Sage 50, and I was part of the project to actually there was a couple of companies within the group. One of the companies we had outsourced the administration, and we put Navision Dynamics Nav, the predecessor to BC. We put that in to run that business. So it was that was a migration from something called Open Accounts to Nav. And then we got on so well there that we decided to also migrate off of Sage, and the company had grown, and it had sort of grown out of Sage 50, and we were a Microsoft house effectively. I'd already done the transition to sort of more to M365 for SharePoint, Exchange, all that good stuff, Teams, and so we of course we stuck with the Microsoft stack just because it all works together. So in a handy way. saves the IT people lots of headaches integrating systems.
I can imagine. I
So
know.
I was on the customer side. I was involved with the original partner. They don't actually exist anymore. Cambridge Online, really great set of people based in Cambridge.
I
And
remember
so,
Cambridge Online.
yeah, Ray Olds, what a legend.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, gosh, long time ago. Making me feel old here, Andy.
well, I was there too, so just so they helped us. They sort of really helped us, with that project. And I was involved closely with the consultants. And I was like, wow, this is a really, it's a really powerful tool. And I got on really well. I really got stuck into it, sort of from on the customer side. And I was the main go-to troubleshooter person on the customer side, and did the repeat training that from the partner. And really enjoyed the project. It was a really good project. It was a great success. We went live, all the balances balanced, all the finance team were happy. And then we did quite a lot of additional developments for that particular company. Perhaps something that, looking back now, maybe would have done a few things differently. You learn a lot through those sorts of things.
I can
But
imagine.
business, Nav and Business Central has changed drastically since those days. We're all on-prem back then. Now, you'd seriously consider why would you run Business Central on premise. The SaaS offering is, from an IT person point of view, you just eliminate a massive chunk of obligations, risk, things to go wrong, like keeping the lights on type IT matters. They just disappear, and you just got a really simple BC admin portal, spinning up environments, doing if you need to do backups, any of that kind of IT admin type stuff. It's a dream for IT managers, basically. I always love getting in touch on the new projects. I really love getting in touch with, well, all the client people, of course, but especially love getting in touch with the IT managers, because I can sort of say to them like, oh, this problem will go away. Oh, wow, how do you know about that? It's like, well, I used to have to deal with it too. So yeah,
I do
that's it in a
feel like when
nutshell.
you work in an end user.
Say again, sorry.
Absolutely. So sorry. I was just saying that I feel like, can you hear me properly?
Yeah, we can now. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yep. Well, it
Okay.
doesn't
I
sound
don't
like
know
you can
what's
hear us.
happening. My computer's been fine. Well, I could. I think it's just
Oh.
a bit delayed, so I do apologise. We love
Yeah, I think this
technology.
happened to
This
me.
one.
Good old tech.
Love a bit of technology.
I know.
The thing with
We need your
technology
help,
is you just
Andy.
got to plow on, haven't you?
Absolutely. Can you hear us,
I
Luce?
know. I can. Yes. Can you hear me?
Great. Yeah.
Fab. There we go. But I was going to
There we go.
say, when you're working in an end user, you're so hands-on with so many different things because you're that go-to person. So I can imagine you learn quite a lot.
Yes, you learn a huge amount, and yeah, but you're kind of really focused in that business's processes. So if we take it from an ERP sort of point of view, every business has got their set of processes they use. When you're on the partner side, you deal with a lot of clients and you get a massive exposure to lots of different processes, people doing the same outcome but getting there in a slightly different way, all the rest of it. When you're on the end user side, you get like really a really good set of experience, kind of in a bit of a more of a narrow bracket, I suppose. But my particular role on the end user, the dynamics bit was part of it, but I dealt with sort of IT and loads of other things, lots of other vendors. I had to build partnerships with the strategic vendors. Some things were commodities, some things were strategic partners. Like the Microsoft partner was definitely a strategic one for me, because we didn't want to just get the cheapest, we wanted to get best value from it. That was really important. But one of the things that I kind of missed when I was on the end user side was I didn't really have time. I never really engage massively with the Microsoft community because I had a lot of vendors, and I never I never did it. So that was one of the most enjoyable things to discover in coming across to the Microsoft partner side. And I was like, right, let's throw myself into the Microsoft community, go along to some of these user groups, and South Coast Summit, Scottish Summit, all these things. I was just totally and utterly blown away with how welcoming people are. You've got, all the competitors effectively saying like, hey guys, like, here's the problem that we all have. Here's how I solve it. What a great idea is, this is a great way of solving it. It's like, oh my goodness, the people are so willing to share. There's that real feeling of, we've all got the similar change. It all comes down to, a lot of it comes, yes, there's technology, but it's people and change management, right? And the technology, you can solve that usually at the end of the day, but the change management bit, that's the real tricky bit. And a successful project, you've got to get the technology right, but you definitely got to get the change management right. So and at these community events, there's people talking about technology, but there's also people talking about the softer stuff. So yeah, I mean, that was a real big one for me.
I can imagine, definitely. And I think, yeah, as you said, it is so nice that you can talk about the problems that everyone encounters, even with your competitors, but they're not your competitors because they will help you. And I think it's just very, very nice.
It's more friends, I think, isn't it? Everybody becomes kind of part of, this community, and I think it's really beneficial for knowledge sharing. And yeah.
I think I take a abundance mindset. Of course there's a fixed amount of business out there for all the partners in a particular space,
Yeah.
and it's going to, at the end of the year, it turned out it got divvied up between all the different partners. But I think I take the abundance mindset. It's better to build a great relationship with someone who's doing something similar to you. Yes, they're your competitor perhaps, but it's better to engage and talk, and you can both win when you do that, as opposed to sort of the
Definitely.
maximum sort of more commercial approach, which I think is unique to the Microsoft thing. So if you talk to like Sage people or SAP people, I don't think that exists in that for those
Is
other
it not?
types of vendors. No.
No.
I don't think so. No.
I didn't know
No.
that. That's interesting.
Mm.
And one thing we were going to touch upon, because I think it's such a big thing for us that we see a lot of as well at the moment, is going from that end user to partner, that jump. Like, we're so interested to know how that went for you, because there is a lot of people that want to make that move, and I think it is a fantastic move to make, and I'm sure you'll say a lot about positivity about that. But we do know there are still partners out there that only want people with partner experience. They won't take people with end user experience. So it'll be interesting to know a bit more about that journey of how you got to that partner environment.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, on the end user side, and I'm kind of coming at this from like a BC kind of perspective, so D365 BC type practice, and it might be a little bit different for Power Platform and those sorts, and also from like an SMB type segment, not an enterprise segment. So just sort of to qualify that. But in those scenarios, the people that you find in BC practices, they're usually sort of accounts background or IT background, and they might have come from an end user, or they might have joined as a junior consultant, sort of worked their way up that way. I'm obviously from the IT background, and to make a really great BC practice, you kind of need a mix of everything, right? If you just picked one flavor of consultants, you're not going to have a successful practice as if you have a good mix of different skills, different backgrounds. So you need your accounts background, you need your IT background people, you need people that have got partner experience, and but the end user people can be a real trump card. So because in that particular sector, especially if you're targeting a particular sector for your projects, some of that having worked in X many years in that sector brings such an incredible referenceability, or when you're getting on calls with clients that are in that similar sector, and just little things like the language you use. I was in like transport previously, so you talk about movements and fixings and transport contracts and subcontractors and all this kind of stuff, little just bits and bobs of knowledge, that when you're talking to a client that's in that particular space, they're like, oh yes, well, like that person gets it. And in your pre-sales, in your sort of sales cycle, I mean, we're not really here to talk about selling projects, but building trust, of course, is paramount, and building a connection. And if someone thinks, oh, like they have walked a little bit, sounds like they've done a similar journey to me, or they've done a little bit in similar shoes to what we're going through, you get that feeling of, well, certainly when I was on the buying side, I mean, the end user, talking to a supplier who took the time to understand the business that they're selling to, you build that trust. You feel like, well, whatever problems we have, we're probably better overcome them with this person, because they understand my business better.
Yeah.
So so in terms of partners looking to build their practices out, recruit people, I would say, if you're not looking at end users, then you're missing a trick. There's some really fantastic, I mean, I would say that because that's the way I did it, right? But no, but in all seriousness, then it really should be part of your portfolio, of your sort of your talent strategy, your recruitment strategy. You've got to find the right people for sure. There's there's different people at different stages on their journeys. But one of the things that doesn't matter what your background is, if you've had experience of change projects, you can learn the technology, but having experience of change projects can, if you've got someone who's really strong on change, and what I mean by that is you can throw them into a difficult situation. Projects like that, it's not all gone to plan. Some mistakes have been made. Clients get a little bit grumpy. If you've got someone who's really strong on change, but what I mean by that is that you can put them into the mix there, and they can listen to the client's problems, understand the concerns, take action, do what's right, but get a good outcome for both sides. You can't just refund someone, months of professional services. That doesn't work either. Sometimes there is a change request, or sometimes, we are going to need to expand the project scope to cover this thing that apparently was in scope, or whatever it might be, those sorts of things. You need to be able to have a conversation. You need to be able to work together on the problems. You need to be able to build that trust. So I'm just, I think end users who, often IT teams, accounts teams, where they've run these projects in the past, and they've had to deal with, and really the end users, I think, from a change management point of view, you've got the possibility to find people who really take the change to the next level, because when you're on a professional services practice, yes, we do the change management, we deliver the project, we go live, and there's the aftercare support and all the rest of it. But you're, kind of that, it would, often you don't really speak so much after the project's gone live. That's the reality of it. But when you're an end user, you're working with Dave for the next years. If it doesn't work, or if he's got to do like 20 extra clicks to do something, he's, you see him every day, and he's like, Andy, you told me it would be less clicks, or whatever the thing is. You do build the skills to, make sure that you deliver that like great outcome, so that people want to get on board with the change, want to use the new system, it might be a change of process. There's hundreds of reasons why people are resistant to change, right? Generally, everyone's resistant to change. No one likes change, right?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But until they
Depends on
kind
the
of
change.
until they've done the change and they're happy with the new thing, right? And then they're like, oh yeah, we love it now.
Yeah, exactly that. It's
Getting into that happy
managing.
phase.
Yes, exactly.
And one thing I was going to pick up on, Andy, was you mentioned about how you had sector experience, and the partner you went into also worked within that sector. So the advice that you would give if you were someone in the end user environment looking to go into a partner, would it be useful for that individual to do a bit of research into the partners and their industries and stuff, to sort of see if that's a better pathway in?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, interestingly, when I joined Incremental, they didn't particularly have a major focus on the sort of the sector that I came from. So it's not essential. It's just if you then do get
Yeah.
into that stuff. So it's not a black and white thing there. But definitely look at the partners. One of the things that I was really pleased about, aside from the community stuff, was that when you join the partner, suddenly you've got all this access to all these like incredible resources. So there's all, like this, you've got this for business, for Dynamics, you get like this customer digital experience, CDX, you've got access to kind of these sandboxes to play around with the latest versions of things. You can get access to a load of Microsoft calls. I mean, I think some of them you have to have a login, you have to be a part of a partner organization, and then you log in with your email address. But some of them I think are just openly available. It's getting something like BC have this BC office hours thing where you get the BC engineers who build the actual application, right? You get them talking on a particular topic, sort of there every couple of months or so. There's partner community calls where you get to hear about a whole lot. There's a huge amount of resources, and of course all of the Microsoft certificates that are great for kind of getting the badges. Everyone loves to get a badge. So
I must admit,
and partners, and beyond that, of course, then there's the partners, what partners organizations would do internally, and usually there's a huge focus on training, of course, and that's not just the technical training, but soft skills training. I think one of the things I realized after moving to the partner side is that the entire professional services practice, it all works about doing excellent delivery. You can't put your professional services time on the shelf, sell it tomorrow. You've got to sell it today, and you've got to be up on your knowledge. So it's so important to focus on the learning, because you understand the latest development, and trying to stay on top of everything from Microsoft has been described as trying to drink from a fire hose, right? It's very difficult. So you've got to have strategies on, and you do have to focus a bit your area. But you take that knowledge, you learn the latest thing, and then you're able to apply it to the next 5-10 projects that you're doing, that sort of thing. So the learning bit is really important. And if you are curious and if you like learning new things, then sort of you jumping across from the end user to the partner side, suddenly the person at your boss, someone at the top is saying, like, it's really important you do this learning and development, dedicate time to this, because the professional service business will be better off, because you're that much little bit more skilled up on solving the problems that we're going to have tomorrow.
100%. And I don't know whether you've seen this, Philippa, but it's an interesting topic about this continuous learning sort of CPD area with the certifications. But I remember we had a few roles come through that were saying you must have PL 900
Right.
and PL
Yeah.
300. And when I was on the phone to candidates, it it was causing a few feathers to be ruffled, and they were
Really?
like, why should I need to have that to be able to be put forward for this job?
Oh,
And
okay.
it's such a debate, I would say, because obviously for me, I'm out, I am outside of the tech world, but I am in it. And I know it's continuously evolving, and there is no way it's ever going to stay the same for a set number of years. It's just never going to happen. So I'm always on board with it, and I never thought it would ruffle feathers, but it
Yeah.
did. So it's really interesting.
I would say, I when I went from end user to partner side, I don't have any certificates at all, none, zero. And then like and one of the conditions of starting was to like do it in the first 3 months, and I haven't gone
Okay.
too bad. I mean, I did the business central one straight away, obviously, and I'm slowly ticking my way through the fundamentals ones.
Yeah.
So I do need to spend a bit more time on those, to be honest. But in terms of you know in terms of moving to the partner side, I certainly understand why partners would say they're looking for people with a particular certificate. It really depends what they're recruiting for. If they're recruiting like a really critical, pivotal senior role, then they do want the person with
Yeah.
that already got that certificate, who's come from the partner side, because it's kind of a crucial in-flight project, and whereas if you're wanting to just grow and build a more vibrant team, and you want you're sort of building your capacity, then that's where I think the opportunity is to get some really great from end user kind of sector. They probably don't have the certificates, but they've been using the app for years. Like they could do it without
Yeah.
any revision, sort of thing.
And I
Oh,
think,
like
yeah, I think, sorry to interrupt you, Andy. I think this goes back to our podcast last week with Andrew Bibby, and we were talking about, hiring for attitude, hiring that right sort of soft skill set, and then you can train the rest. So clients, partners can kind of offer that certification a bit like they did with you, Andy, when you
yeah,
joined, these are your conditions. We want you to do this certification within the first 3 months, and we'll help you on that
exactly.
journey. But they hired you because of your personality, your attitude, you bring the energy, and that is what we
You
need
do.
in the channel.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
like it.
I completely agree.
Mm.
The ability to learn is more important than how much you know today, sort of thing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
ability and the want that,
Yes, that's right.
it's hard to find that drive these days, and to have that, I think, is an asset to any business.
Yeah,
People that are passionate. I think that's such a big
And
thing.
prepared to work,
I think,
you know,
yeah, I
work
think it
ethic.
was where
yeah,
was it? A couple of weeks back, maybe 3 weeks back now, when we spoke to Rachel, who had moved to Malta from Africa, and she literally hadn't
Inspiring. Yeah.
had any prior experience, but her passion and her want for it, and her
Mm,
like outside learning and everything that she put into it
mm.
allowed her to get into one of the big four companies straight off the back. And I think that's what some partners, not all, some partners are missing, that openness still. And I
And
think
I
that
think,
will be a pivotal point.
yeah, I totally agree. And then I think that's where we can help, Luce, because a little bit like when I was speaking to Andy in those days, we can help open those doors to partners and say, look, I've got this candidate, Andy, he's excellent. He really wants to get into the partner channel. I think it would be worth, speaking to him, or not just you, Andy, but like that lots of people, where we can really champion their skill set and help create that opportunity for them to kind of join a partner, whereas it might not create itself, if that makes sense. So we can help kind of in
Bridge the
that way.
gap.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
word, that's what I'm looking for.
yeah. I mean, and also,
Definitely.
yeah, kudos to Rob Jones, who had he also it was
Oh,
we
lovely
spoke to a number
Rob.
of partners. We spoke to a numur of partners before. I didn't have the partner experience right back then, and it was a number of
Yes.
partners before. You put me in front of Incremental and Rob Jones,
Yeah.
and he had the vision. He is also the end user to
Oh,
partner
wow.
side, many years before. But yeah, he had the vision, and what a great vision it is.
A huge vision. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And would you say,
I
Andy, what would you say the challenges? Did you find any challenges making that jump?
Yeah, for devs, when you are on the end user side, there's a skill gap you definitely have, right? Because you're not used to delivering professional services, right? And there's that, and
Mm,
it's all about excellent delivery, and it's all about the delivering the scope, don't over deliver, don't under deliver, high
Yeah,
quality
get it
delivery.
just right.
Yeah, getting it right. Being mindful about the actual the project itself and the technical delivery side of it. Being mindful about the budget. Being mindful about the scope. Understanding like the professional services sales process, aftercare. There's a lot of stuff that you'll want to pick up, right? Or
Yeah,
like read about it in a book or something, just to give yourself like, and it's not till you're really doing it that you really learn it for deaths. So there is a bit of a sort of a skill gap thing. But but you can learn it, right?
yeah,
You're really strong on the technical, using the application side. And when you get put in front of clients, and it is a bit nerve-wracking to begin with sometimes, because you think like, oh, I mean, imposter syndrome. I'm sure you've spoken, lots of people
oh,
speak
yeah,
about that. 100%. I've suffered from that. I suffer from that. You never stop suffering from it. I think you just have to keep telling yourself, um, I mean, on any like a discovery session or something like that, there's always questions that you don't know the answer to. You just have to be like, well,
Yeah.
that's a really great question. I'll write that one down. I'll get back to you, and you go and find out the answer, and
of course, yeah.
you ask the team. That's another
Yeah,
great thing.
and that's the
In the
benefit,
partner
isn't
side,
it?
you've got your BC team chats like, guys, here's an interesting one. How would you solve this? And like that's
Help.
you bounce ideas, and
Yeah.
that's actually really good fun. And going back and there, yeah. So I've got the original question now.
Do you know one thing I was just going to say is that I find it so funny that we talk about how everyone knows how great the community is, how supportive it is, yet everyone still mentions they suffer with imposter syndrome. It's so funny because
Yeah.
they're so back to back, but
You can
yeah,
because you can
I
come
get
up
it.
again. You can come up against end users. It's the real world, right? Especially in SMB.
Yeah,
People are working extremely hard. Often, people are doing long hours. You don't have separate project teams. These are people, professionals. They're doing a difficult job. It might be a difficult market. There's so many things you don't know about these people, and you've been sold as the expert. And it's kind of like you just get that. There's that little thing in your mind. It's like, oh, what if I don't know the answer to one question? Like this really important person. The client here. I'm sort of, they're paying X many per day to have me there. I want them to be really
yeah,
happy with what I do. So that I think that's perhaps what happens. But yeah, of course, generally speaking, it's always fine, right? You can sort them out.
of course. And I know one thing we do want to see change is partners coming to us, well, like us as recruitment consultants, or on their job advert saying partner experience required. I think if we could see less of that, we'd be a lot happier. But one
Okay.
thing we also, I would say, think could be quite a pivotal point, because not every partner does this at the moment, or end user to be fair, is the junior side of things. And I think,
Oh,
we can quickly touch upon this, but for juniors who are trying to break through into the industry, it is so hard. Um, because people are requiring experience. I know this year, probably the last 18 months is particularly hard,
yeah.
granted. But it'll be interesting to see as the market gets better what there is out there for for the juniors. Have you sort of seen anything to do with juniors and any advice for them at the moment?
No, within the Business Central sort of area, Microsoft have got a big push on this, and there's a BC Talent program that's kind of that
Excellent.
Microsoft are pushing. So that is designed to help partners create whether it's a graduate recruitment scheme, that's what they used to call it, or just
Yeah.
that like training people up. They don't have to be graduates. You could be a junior. It could be a career move for you. So Microsoft absolutely recognizes the need to get that fresh blood coming into the
Yeah,
sector, I think partners will all agree that they want fresh blood in the system. It's
Definitely.
sometimes you have to be at a particular phase, I suppose, of your professional services practice, kind of where you are as a business,
yeah,
for it to launch it. But the most successful ones will undoubtedly have these kind of programs set up, and they will reap the benefits of the investment. And it is an investment, but they will definitely reap the benefits, because you bring people in, and that you generate great loyalty, and and whether or not whether or not people stay for the long term or for the short term, it's more, you're bringing more talent into the pool, so it's a net benefit overall. And definitely, you benefit as a partner organization, you benefit in the long term from that. So that's something that I think is really important. In the first Reading user group talk a little while ago now, Chris Huntingford, it was only like last year or something.
What a man.
Yes, good old Chris.
Good
He
old
gave a
Chris.
talk. Yeah, that exactly. Retty hit him up for like, can you talk at the first one? He's like, of course I can, I guess. But no, he gave a really interesting talk about, it was all about the partner channel and about consultants moving between partners and saying, like, oh, if you want to get a pay rise, then you move to another partner, as he was sort of saying. But you've got all these people moving around, becoming more senior in the sector, but you're not getting those fresh ideas. And he said, his basic message at the end, if I remember correctly, was, like, if you're a senior consultant, like, watch out for the young blood that's coming in, because they've learned things differently. They're going to come in and they're going to disrupt things. They've used Copilot, in their workplace. It's not something that's new to them. That's something they're familiar with, or whatever it might be. So his comment was back then was about getting the fresh blood onto sort of the consultancy side within the partner sector, and just how important it was.
Yeah. And I think that
Definitely.
remains to this day, doesn't it, Philippa? I would say, because we were talking about this, I think, the other week, about the importance of getting new people in the ecosystem.
I think there's the importance of getting new people in the ecosystem and the new blood, but you definitely have to have those senior hires in place who probably would need partner experience to help their onboarding process and to help their sort of partner journey be okay. And I'm sure you found this with Telefonica or Incremental at the time, Andy, that you had people like Rob in place who like knows the industry inside and out. You looked up to them, they inspire you and they can coach you, because without those senior hires, we could hire all the juniors in the world. And we've seen this, internally at Conspicuous. You can hire all the juniors in the world, but they need a structure in place to allow them to flourish and grow within the business.
I learned so much from the senior consultants and Kerry at Incremental, whilst I was there, whilst it was you learn a huge amount. It's really important to have that experience. That's why it's about the sort of about the mixed basket approach, if you like. You just had purely all senior consultants, your business is not going to be as successful as if you have a mix. But that's I'm
it's
sure
great, and I love that mixture, and I love
the,
like you were saying, the fresh ideas coming in with the new people and the younger people, or just new people fresh to the channel. They bring a lot of fresh ideas, don't they? And I think that's great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, talking to the team here, what's up, we sort of, if there's problems, we'll chat in the sort of the BC team chat and discuss, and I'm always learning something new off all the people I work with, because everyone's got a slightly different way of approaching the problem, and it's always interesting to understand the nuances of the slight different approaches, and what the different outcomes are. So it's every day's a school day, as they say.
It really is.
Especially in the industry that you're in. And I think we touched upon quite a few important things, I think, in this podcast. I must admit, I think it will be very useful. And one important thing that I've just taken away from that is, of course, we can say, get more juniors on board, get more end users on board, doing that conversion. But of course, it's so dependent on where the partner's at, what their current team is already sat at, the different things. There's so many different factors that play into it, of course. And I think that it's just riding the waves of the market and where things are at the moment, projects being signed off and stuff. So of course, there's going to be highs and lows for different people, like juniors coming in, like end users wanting to make that leap. It is dependent on the market and the partner itself, I think.
It's really just, sorry, Philippa.
No, you go, Andy.
I was just going to say, it's just having it as one of your talent strategies, whatever. You've got a pool of partner experienced people, perhaps, but you also want to have you should have if you're targeting a particular sector, getting those end users in, or getting in end users for the soft skills that they bring around change management, that sort of thing. just definitely wants to be part of your overall approach.
Definitely. And I think it's important to have a few conversations, because it's not necessarily, I think when you're moving from an end user, it's not necessarily the first partner that you speak to is going to be the right match for you. You might need to speak to a few and have a few conversations to find that right home, because that's going to be your home, that's where you're going to flourish and build your career. So you've got to find that right, match for you, and that is quite a personal thing. So
there's a special trick that you can use for that one, Philip. You find yourself a really good recruiter who knows this channel and can put you in
not
front
where
of
I
the
was going
one.
with that. But thanks, Andy.
I love
No, but
that.
I have a lot to thank you, Philippa. You're the
Oh,
reason
bless
I'm
you. Likewise, your
chatting
pleasure as
here
well.
today.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I know all of us could chat for a very long time, like we do whenever we see each other at events, so it could go on
I
for
know.
hours. I know one thing we have sort of neglected is any comments that have come through. We've sort of chatted away, so we will answer them afterwards. I
Yeah.
promise we'll respond in the comments. Now I know you. Oh, I just hit the wire. God. I know you tuned in to Andrew Bibby's last week, so I know you've
Yes.
probably seen the mystery question
Oh
that we're
God.
now asking
I
at the
forgot
end
about that.
of a
We hope you
podcast.
prepped your answer.
Yeah. But we just think it's a bit of fun. We get to know people
Yeah.
a bit better. But if you weren't the head of Business Central at Telefonica Tech, what would you be doing as a job, Mr. Andy Wingate?
See. Yes, that's a really difficult question. The
Could be
some of
anything.
it can be it can be anything. I mean,
Anything.
what some of the things that I really enjoy is the opportunity to have an impact, is that learning new things, using technology. I'm sort of describing like what you
job.
get when you
Yeah.
my role.
You're not allowed
So
to do that.
Yeah.
Originally I was a biochemist, so perhaps in an alternate universe, Andy Wingate is still in doing academia, doing biomedical research. I still find
Ooh.
it fascinating. I kind of my journey took me sort of more to the out of academia into information services, sort of towards the IT thing. But perhaps in another world, I'd have carried on that vein, and I'd be doing something on sort of the biology research front. Because it's a lot. You get those same outcomes. You get that you're learning. You can make an impact. There's a massive community. There's conferences you go and talk at.
Yeah.
There's sort of parallels, kind of. The difference with the IT stuff, though, is you save your work at the end of the day and going home, or go out of your home office on a lot of biological research stuff. It's a different kind of challenge.
Well, I think that's a good answer. And we never would have known you were within that area before if we didn't ask the question. This is why it's great. So here we go. But anyway, Andy, it's always a pleasure talking to you. You're a bundle of joy. And as we said,
Well,
you're
thank you.
such a friendly,
Likewise.
bubbly person in the industry. So it's so lovely to have you in it. This won't be the last that you guys will see of Andy. He's around, he attends conferences. And also you've started a little blog series, haven't you, about this particular topic?
Yes, that's right. I tended to do my Sunday blogs were more like helping future Andy with that same problem again. But I thought I would. What else could I talk about that's not technology? And yeah, like the journey from end user to the partner side. I guess that's what I can easily talk about, since that's what I've done. And I thought perhaps that'd be some way to give giving back to the community, like right back at the start, sort of mentioned. Joining the community events and sort of receiving so much help and advice, and sort of so much freely given help, right? And made feel welcome. So it's really kind of, I do feel I'm driven to give back somehow, something that I can do that can be useful to someone somewhere, perhaps. So that end user to consultant side is, I've got a whole load of blog posts planned on that, just to write down the problems that I came across, and like the skill gap we talked about, and I'll cover that off, and all the other bits and bobs as well.
I think that's great.
We could pop a link, couldn't we, Lucy, in the
Sure.
comments, maybe to the blog. Actually, we'll get our marketing superstar Helena to do that for us.
Absolutely. And you're releasing them weekly, is that correct?
Roughly,
Was it
yes,
week?
that's the plan.
Yeah, roughly. So you'll have to, keep an eye on Andy's page because he'll definitely be posting them. We'll be reposting stuff of his as well. I
Yep.
think it is something a lot of people would be interested in knowing. I think it's something that hasn't been spoken much about, if I'm honest. So
Okay.
yeah, excited to see your little
Well, hey,
dog series, but this is great. So
thank you very
what we'll
much.
do, we will wrap up now. But as I said, absolute pleasure once again, Philippa. Thank you so much for coming on as well.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks
Um,
for having me.
and we will see everyone next week, and I'll continue talking to you two after. So see you later, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.